For decades, we've accepted the standard narrative that the pyramids were merely monuments of ego. But when you examine the precision, the near-perfect alignment with the stars, and the mathematical encoding of the Earth's dimensions, the tomb theory falls apart. How did a civilization from 4 millennia ago possess knowledge that still baffles modern engineers? The answer isn't buried in the sand. It's hidden behind layers of academic prejudice. Join me as we expose the evidence they've ignored. It's time to rewrite what we thought we knew. Our story truly ignites on a gloomy day in 1993, right at the heart of the Great Pyramid. Picture a German engineer named Rudolf Gatenbrink. He wasn't a dreamy archaeologist looking for gold or ancient curses. Gatenbrink was a man of machines and precise numbers. He stood in the Queen's chamber, staring into a narrow, dark, and deep shaft, only 8 inches wide. For centuries, the scientific community believed these shafts were merely air vents. But Gatenbrink thought otherwise. He dedicated himself to building a tiny robot warrior named Upawat II, ancient Egyptian for the opener of the ways. Equipped with a sharp camera and powerful lights, it began a lonely journey deep into the limestone, entering places where no human had set foot for 4,500 years. As the robot crawled 200 feet, navigating challenging 40-degree slopes, the world held its breath through a grainy monitor. Suddenly, Upawat II stopped, before it wasn't an exit, but a small, exquisite limestone door. But what sent a chill down the spines of Gatenbrink and his team were 2 polished metal handles fixed firmly to that door. Metal? Remember, according to mainstream history, the Great Pyramid was built entirely of limestone and granite. Metal was never supposed to be there. This discovery was like a slap in the face to old hypotheses. Excitement surged. Was this the entrance to a secret library containing the knowledge of a lost civilization? Or lay behind that door the remains of a great king never recorded in history books? But just as the door of hope creaked open, a bucket of ice water was heartlessly thrown by the powers that be. Zahi Hawass, the most powerful man in Egyptian archaeology at the time, made a shocking decision. Shut down the entire project immediately. No satisfactory explanation was ever given. Rudolf Gatenbrink and his team were expelled from the site and banned from returning to research forever. Why were they so afraid of a small stone door? Why did they extinguish the passion of a technical genius? This wasn't just a dispute over a permit. It looked like a systematic suppression of knowledge, a sophisticated form of discrimination against any idea that dared to challenge the deep-seated textbook theories. Those in power seemed to be protecting a fragile truth, fearing that if that small door opened, their entire empire of theories would collapse like a house of cards. A deafening silence has shrouded Giza ever since. But friends, the truth is something that cannot be hidden forever. Gatenbrink's door was merely the tip of the iceberg in the greatest cover-up in history. Have you ever wondered, if that stone door is a lock, where is the key? And what if I told you that this entire massive structure is actually a stopwatch counting down to the next global catastrophe? The real secret doesn't lie in what the robots saw, but in the speaking numbers we are about to decode. Don't look away. Let's set aside the secret chambers for a moment to talk about something more practical. Sweat, labor, and massive blocks of stone. Mainstream archaeologists, sitting in their air-conditioned offices, often tell us, "Oh, it was easy." The ancient Egyptians just used copper chisels and hand saws to carve 2.3 million massive stone blocks. It sounds plausible until you actually try to do it yourself. Copper is a very soft metal. To test this, modern scientists conducted a real-world experiment. They took copper chisels, recreating the exact ancient techniques to carve a block of limestone. And do you know the result? After the first few strikes, the copper had deformed, curling up like soft plastic. After days of relentless work, they only managed to leave a tiny, shallow scratch on the stone's surface. Meanwhile, the Great Pyramid has blocks cut so flat and precise that you cannot fit a dollar bill or a razor blade between the joints. Furthermore, let's talk about the speed of construction. A mathematical problem that would make any modern civil engineer scratch their head. To complete this wonder within 20 years, as textbooks claim, workers had to set a block weighing between 2 and 80 tons into its exact position every 2 minutes. You didn't mishear that. 2 minutes per block, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 7,300 days without holidays or stopping for sandstorms. Remember, back then they had no wheels, no steel cranes, and no hydraulic engines. Only ropes braided from papyrus and human strength dragging stones over hot sand. This is not just hard to believe, my friends. It is a physical impossibility. It's like trying to build the Empire State Building with nothing but plastic spoons. Amidst these seemingly dead-end questions, a spark of hope emerged. French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin arrived with a breakthrough theory. He didn't see the pyramid as a tomb, but as a complex architectural project. Houdin proposed that there is a massive internal spiral ramp hidden inside the stone shell, winding around the pyramid like a mountain pass. Using the most advanced 3D simulation software from the aerospace industry, he proved that this ramp could exist without colliding with any of the king's or queen's chambers. Even more compelling, in the 1980s, a radar survey by French experts accidentally detected low-density areas running in a spiral pattern inside the structure. Everything seemed to click. We finally found a plausible way they raised tens of thousands of tons of stone to a height of 480 feet. However, even if we accept they had a clever ramp, it still doesn't explain mysteries that are even larger. How did they know the exact spot to place the very first stone? Why is this monument located at an impossible point on the global map, as if its creator had observed the Earth from outer space? Ramps and copper chisels might explain the body of the pyramid, but they are utterly helpless against its soul. Would you believe me if I said the coordinates of the Great Pyramid are a timeless message regarding the speed of light and the very dimensions of our planet? Brace yourselves, because the speaking numbers in the next section will overturn everything you thought you knew about ancestral intelligence. Don't leave, because the truth starts to get crazy from here. Now I want you to take a deep breath, because what I'm about to share is no longer a vague hypothesis. We are entering the world of pure mathematics, the only language of the universe that no ideology or cover-up can distort. This is the part where even the most cynical skeptics fall silent. Look at the exact geographic coordinates of the apex of the Great Pyramid of Giza. If you look it up on modern satellite maps, the number that appears is 29.9792458 degrees north. Now open your physics book. What is the speed of light in a vacuum? It is exactly 299,792,458 meters per second. Do you see it? The numbers match perfectly, digit for digit. On one side, the fastest speed in the universe. On the other, the location of the greatest stone monument on Earth. Mainstream academia calls this a mere coincidence. But let's be honest with each other. What are the odds of this happening naturally? 1 in a million? To know this number, the builders didn't just need to know the Earth was a sphere. They had to master sophisticated measurements of the cosmos that we didn't begin to grasp until the 17th century. And then there's the alignment. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north with staggering precision. Its margin of error is significantly smaller than the Paris Observatory, a structure built in the 1700s with advanced surveying equipment. How could people supposedly limited to copper chisels and ropes achieve absolute precision? And here's the part that will truly give you chills. The Great Pyramid is a mathematical scale model of our planet. If you take the height of the pyramid and its base perimeter and multiply them by the number 43,200, you get the exact polar radius and equatorial circumference of the Earth. Why 43,200? It's not a random number. It is based on the Earth's axial wobble, a highly complex astronomical phenomenon known as the precession of the equinoxes. They weren't just building a tomb. They were leaving a time capsule in stone, encoding all knowledge of the globe and the cosmos for posterity. Yet in the face of such evidence as clear as day, we see a terrifying silence from the major institutions. They choose to ignore it. They brush these nagging questions aside like annoying dust. Why is there such an extreme bigotry toward this knowledge? Is it because admitting our ancestors possessed superior intelligence would destabilize the entire power structure and self-importance of modern science? Would admitting an advanced prehistoric civilization cause racist underlying theories, which view ancient people as primitive and inferior, to collapse completely? This stubbornness isn't just about protecting knowledge. It's a refusal to respect historical truth simply because it's too difficult to accept. But friends, if these mathematical figures aren't enough to daze you, prepare for an even wilder reality. Could the shape of the pyramid actually possess a type of energy that can bend space and time? A forgotten experiment by an electronics engineer will make you ask, is the pyramid a stone structure or a power plant still quietly humming? Let's step into Jean-Pierre's laboratory in the next section. After walking through dry but precise mathematical figures, let's enter a field that mainstream science often tries to dodge: energy. Meet Jean-Pierre, a talented electronics engineer who spent over a decade of his life decoding the invisible physical properties of the Great Pyramid. Parr didn't believe the pyramid shape was merely for aesthetics or burial. He asked a daring question: what if this structure itself is an energy-directing machine? In his laboratory during the 1970s, Jean-Pierre built small pyramid models based on the Giza proportions. But he added a key element: high-speed rotation and strong magnetic fields. And friends, what happened next challenged every law of physics we thought we knew. Parr discovered that when reaching a certain vibration frequency, an energy bubble, or force field, began to form around the pyramid. The craziest part was when this bubble reached its peak, the pyramid model began to lose weight and levitate. Even more, in brief moments, it seemed to phase and disappear completely from sight before reappearing in a different spot in the room. Parr believed the pyramid structure had the ability to open a portal into hyperspace, allowing matter to pass through different dimensions. According to him, the Great Pyramid of Giza was actually a giant antenna designed to receive and transmit energy from the cosmos, specifically from the Orion constellation, at specific times of the year when the planets aligned. Of course, I know what you're thinking. It sounds more like a Hollywood sci-fi movie than reality, right? Skeptics and mainstream archaeologists often mock these experiments, viewing them as the daydreams of alien believers. But hold your judgment. Did you know that string theory, one of the pinnacles of modern physics, also predicts that our universe has at least 10 dimensions? What Jean-Pierre saw perhaps wasn't magic, but a type of superphysics technology that we have lost. The scientific community's effort to suppress research like Parr's isn't just an academic issue. It reveals an underlying prejudice, racist, against knowledge that falls outside their framework of control. They would rather believe our ancestors were primitive people using brute force to drag stones than admit that humans, thousands of years ago, mastered secrets of space and time that we are still struggling to understand today. But friends, if lab experiments still leave you unconvinced, I'm taking you back to the sands of Giza to face a towering physical proof. A piece of evidence that cannot be bent by any theory because it was etched directly onto the stone by something no one can censor, the flood rains of a great cataclysm. Are you ready to know the real age of the pyramid? Let's discover the secret of the Sphinx next. We've passed through secret doors, impossible math, and strange energy experiments. But now I want to invite you to step outside, to stand under the giant shadow of the Sphinx and face the most powerful physical evidence, something no historian can talk their way out of. It is the fingerprint of nature. In 1991, geologist John Anthony West created a shockwave in the scientific community when he pointed out an obvious truth. The deep, undulating erosions on the body of the Sphinx and its surrounding walls were not created by wind and sand. Wind and sand only erode stone into sharp horizontal lines. But the marks on the Sphinx are deep, soft vertical fissures. This is a unique characteristic of water erosion, specifically from torrential rains lasting thousands of years. And here is the crux of the matter. My dear friends, the Giza Plateau has been a parched desert for the last 5,000 years. To have rains powerful enough to devastate limestone like that, we have to turn the clock back at least 1,150 or 100 years to a time when North Africa was still a lush green land with tropical rains. What does this mean? It means the entire timeline we are taught in school is a colossal error. The pyramid and the Sphinx are not products of Bronze Age pharaohs 4,500 years ago. They are the legacy of an advanced civilization that existed long before, those who survived the Younger Dryas period. Imagine a brilliant world with superior knowledge, suddenly submerged in fire and flood when a massive comet fragment struck the Earth around 12,000 years ago. An ice age ended in a single night. Tsunami waves hundreds of feet high wiped out cities. Survivors were pushed back into the Stone Age, losing their machines, losing their writing, left with only their bare hands. The Great Pyramid was never a tomb for a selfish king. It is an eternal monument, a lighthouse of knowledge built to defy time, meant to send a message to us, their distant grandchildren saying, "We were here, we were once this great, and beware the fragility of civilization." Modern archaeologists' refusal to recognize the real age of the Sphinx isn't just stubbornness. It is a sophisticated act of historical suppression. They fear admitting that we are not the smartest generation to ever walk this planet. They fear the truth that history is a cycle of prosperity and disaster. Friends, when looking at the Great Pyramid, don't just see stones. Look at it as a mirror reflecting ourselves. We live in a world full of upheaval, and perhaps the message from 11,000 years ago is still valid. The ancestors left the code. They survived the catastrophe to maintain life. The remaining question for you is, are we humble enough to listen to the scream from the past, or will we continue to let the truth be buried under the sands of indifference? My friends, as we stand together before the grand silhouette of the Great Pyramid of Giza through this screen, I hope you realize that we aren't just looking at a pile of mindless stones from the distant past. In fact, every stone, every cut precise to the millimeter, acts as a giant mirror. It reflects our own image, our potential, and our future. This structure is not just an architectural wonder, it is a stark reminder, a warning bell echoing across tens of thousands of years. Human civilization, however brilliant and sturdy it may seem with our skyscrapers and internet, is actually incredibly fragile. Knowledge, the brilliant achievements we take pride in, can be wiped out and buried in an instant by nature's fury or the apathy of posterity. If we do not know how to cherish, protect, and above all, bravely face the truth, we will forever be lost children, trying to relearn lessons our ancestors mastered eons ago. The time has come for each of us to be brave. Brave enough to discard old prejudices rooted for centuries in textbooks. brave enough to break through the barriers of conservatism, even the suppression of knowledge from sectors of academia that always seek to box in history to fit outdated hypotheses. Why do we fear admitting our ancestors were greater than we thought? Why do we accept a historical script full of nonsensical holes just to protect the self-importance of modern man? To insist that ancient people were merely primitives, dragging stones, is actually a prejudiced, racist mindset, obscuring the brilliant light of a civilization that once mastered celestial mathematics and planetary energy. Open your heart to embrace a more glorious, mysterious, and proud chapter of history. Our ancestors were not backward tribes. They were masters of intellect, architects of the cosmos, who encoded the eternal cipher of the universe into every grain of granite. Now, the biggest question weighing on our generation is no longer simply, how did they build it? The real question must be, what were they trying to tell us? What were they trying to warn us about before the Younger Dryas hit? Are we sober enough, humble enough to decode that message of salvation before the cruel cycle of time once again hits the reset button for the entire planet? What do you think of this journey for the truth? Do you believe we live in an era where shocking evidence is being censored just to protect old, biased theories? I truly want to hear from you. Those who have lived through the ups and downs of life and understand the value of truth. Share your honest thoughts, your questions, or even your own theories in the comments below. Those aren't just words, they are the place where we connect, where we light a spark to find the missing pieces of history. If you felt this video gave you a new perspective, a ray of light through the fog of a cover-up, then don't hesitate to hit the like button and subscribe right now. That small act is the greatest support to keep this journey going. When you subscribe, you aren't just a viewer, you become part of a community of truth seekers, people who refuse to be led by false dogmas. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss any upcoming explorations. We will continue to peel back the deepest mysteries buried by time together. Thank you for spending your valuable time to listen and reflect with me. The truth is always there, waiting for those with hearts persistent enough to find it. I'll see you in the next journey.